Well, hello and welcome to Alamance County Talks Politics. My name is Keith, and today I have a special guest with me, Shawn Francis. Shawn is here today, and he's going to respond to one of the videos that I put out a couple of days ago concerning the RAD Range and the community. And so today he's going to be making some comments about some of the comments that were made. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him and welcome Shawn to the broadcast. And you go ahead and just say a few things and tee it up for how you want to answer or respond to the comments that were made in the video.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate your podcast. I think you're doing a good thing here. I do appreciate the opportunity to respond. You seem to genuinely encourage conversation. That's good. We don't talk to our neighbors anywhere near enough. What really got me about these particular set of videos was, my first reaction was, oh, here we go again. It's gonna be like the third. What is it gonna be? Another year-long, discussion of bouncing bullets and what ordinance we can apply to a single gun range. And I was just like, oh, not again. And I of course want to put myself in the shoes of people who are angry about being next to a loud gun range, but there were a couple of comments, that were uncharacteristic even of you. I think where you would say things like, this is what's being alleged, and I have no reason to not to believe it. And I thought, well, wait a minute. What about hearing both sides of the equation? Why would you just assume that somebody who's making an accusation?
Now, have you read my comment? You haven't seen my comment, have you?
I've actually posted
this comment. Yeah, I posted on there. Yeah, I've never actually seen the Constitution of Arizona either, but there's a mountain of evidence that says it exists. And what I'm saying in there, and I'll give you a chance, but what I'm saying is he gave evidence. In fact, if you just read the comment, and it'll go a great deal.
Yeah.
Now, let me say this, Shawn. Wait a minute. Let me say this because you brought up a good point as far as there was, and the reason this is an issue is because I think you said it was about a year and a half ago, wasn't it? That the community. I posted this or made this video about a year and a half ago, and it was about this community or getting together with the county commissioners about creating an ordinance that would regulate the discharge of firearms. And so, and so it actually ended up failing 3-2. And so that's what I should have introduced with that. But go ahead, Shawn. You're right. You were surprised about the comments that were made. Yeah.
I want to add that was not the first time we all had to go and I mean all as a county, right? All those of us who pay attention to the county meetings know that this is not the first time. This is not the second time.
That's right.
I think it's at least the third episode where we've all had to go through months.
I missed the first,
of this one issue, So I do think there comes a point in time where we have to say, come on, this needs to be adjudicated outside of the meeting. Everybody has certainly had their fair say on the topic. If I'm very much against a constitutional convention. I don't think our constitution needs to be changed. If I loaded seven people in that room and that they all wanted to talk about that one issue, the county commissioners would say one issue, one person gets to speak on this, and that's it. We're not going to have, a whole tribe of people doing this. And here we go again, right? So that wouldn't be so bad if I felt that the issues were being presented honestly. But I don't think that's the case at all. I know that there has been some back and forth with the parties involved where they want to buy the property. And they don't want to just buy the property to silence, to bring back peace and quiet to their neighborhood. We're talking about people who actually own large tracts of land out there and want to turn it into the next suburban, area. They want to develop the property. And they have made no bones about their desire to develop their real estate developers. Most of the people, the main people that you see heading up this complaint are people who want to develop that property. They want to put up housing development. And having a successful gun range there has harmed that business transaction. Okay, so it's harmed that business goal. And early in the dialogue between these neighbors, it was made very clear, Rudy, you will close, you will get on out of here, or we will make your life miserable. And that gauntlet was laid down, and they're making good on that promise. They're going to do everything they can to make Rudy's life difficult so that he leaves and they can become free to develop that property as they wish. Um, and as I go through I have the meeting queued up here on my phone, and as I listen, every one of them starts off with claims that are just not true, right? And I didn't make like handwritten notes to go through one by one, but um, you'll notice, for instance, that I don't know the gentleman's name. I think his last name is Dunn, but I'm not sure. Um, and he's 1746 Jim Barnwell Road is what he gives as an address. And he starts off by saying he wants to talk about the illegalities of what's going on, the offenses, he's already like saying specifically that this range is violating the law, right? It's violating the law. I guess it's as simple as I can say it. And they start to list off things that they assert are violations of the law or violations of safety or things that are happening that I don't believe are happening. For instance, we're hearing that deputies are having to duck and hit, run for cover and jump on the ground and along with their neighbors so that they don't, to avoid the bullets that are whizzing past their head. And if you go out there to the property, and I have, one of my chief complaints that I had a problem with was they were shooting off guns and explosions in the middle of church services. And I didn't think that was right. So I went out there to confront the owner of the range, Rudy Cartassi, and I found out that that's not true. It's not happening. In fact, a year and a half ago, you might remember that the last episode of the county commissioner meeting ended by them agreeing not to have the operations of the range happening during Sunday morning service. They agreed to start their activity at noon so that the church service could end. And Rudy then also agreed that if they wanted to run a funeral, that all the pastor had to do is call Rudy, and Rudy would pause operations and give them enough time to run their funeral, and that's was done out of respect for their funeral.
Okay, so you're saying the he has not contacted Rudy about when they are going to have a funeral, or is that
I
what you're
asked
saying?
Rudy, I asked Rudy about that, and he said that he has not gotten a phone call or any request from that pastor in 2 years.
All
So
right.
even longer
Oh,
than
okay. What about
for
have you
for
talked to the
funeral.
pastor?
Not yet. I
Okay,
intend
then
to.
you're accusing me of the same thing that you haven't done yourself. You see, you
Yeah,
gotta you see what I'm saying. Now let me ask you this question though, Sean. I'll let you continue. The
yeah.
deputy, have you spoken with the deputy that said she hit the ground? Or I think it was a female that they alerted to. Have you
I
spoken to that
I've
individual?
spoken to other deputies that know her, and I've spoken to Sheriff Johnson, but I have
Okay.
not known. And I'm not saying, look, it's a blatant lie. What I am saying is, if that statement is true, then Sheriff Johnson's not doing his job. I mean, what do you think? Do you think if I start whizzing bullets past his deputies' heads, that I'm gonna live to tell about it? I'm not. Sheriff Johnson's not just going to be like, oh well, hey, like bygones be bygones. That's a pretty serious thing to have going on.
Okay. Okay. What about okay? Does this? I
I,
agree with you. I
I'm
agree.
calling. I'd like to see some fact checking going on.
Okay. Do you disagree that bullets are leaving they were now? From what I understand, they're still leaving. At least one did, according to the last commissioners
Yeah,
meeting.
well,
The
that was
50
another one. I was
caliber,
like,
but
a 50 caliber bullet is a very large bullet.
yeah.
And if a 50 caliber bullet, so I don't know the area super well, but I don't think I can't picture any houses. Like I know that long range that they use, and he dug down really deep, and he's got these berms. I think it's like 500 yards.
Yeah.
But if you look on the back side of that, like draw a straight line, like using like a satellite image, like a Google map or Earth kind of thing, I don't see any bedrooms where that could have happened. I don't see any houses where a 50 caliber bullet could have landed in somebody's bedroom. And I think if 50 caliber bullets were landing in people's bedrooms, the sheriff would have more action to take.
Well,
And
that's what
the
I'm
fact
thinking
that I'm
too.
not seeing any follow up on that shows me that there's more to that story
What do
than
you think? I mean, what
what
could be
we're
the?
being.
You think they're being dishonest about it? Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
let's put it this way: there are forensic you can do on a bullet, a ballistic check, right? To say like what gun was it fired from, right?
Yeah.
There's rifling marks. You can tell by the characteristic of looking at the bullet. Was this actually fired out of a gun, or was it just lodged in a room so somebody could make a claim? Um, and what were the conditions upon which, if this was a truly fired, like, and I'd venture to guess if you bring Rudy onto your show, he's going to have something to say about that from a fact checking perspective, or he might even be able to prove his innocence. But he's not being given that chance, and I think he deserves to be given that chance because that's a pretty serious allegation.
I
I
agree.
don't care if like a 22 bullet landing in somebody's bedroom. I think we can all agree that's a very serious offense that the forum for that is not a county commissioner meeting. I mean, I'm picturing the Music Man, we got trouble right here in River City. The capital T and it rhymes with P, stands for pool, right? And now everybody's like, eek, we got to be afraid of the pool hall. And, like, well, hold on a second. There are some, I heard him saying that he was going down on neighbors' properties and pulling down trespassing signs. So Sheriff Johnson, once again, apparently isn't doing his job. But if somebody walks on my property and starts taking down signage off my property, and I call the sheriff has a legitimate action that they can take against that person. That person has committed theft, right? I mean, maybe Rudy's denying, and there's no evidence that he went on. But I think given how long this thing's gone on, I know Rudy's got cameras everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Butch McKenzie and the other guy has all sorts of cameras. I mean, they probably would love to catch Rudy on their property stealing trespassing signs. They would love that. You can bet that we'd have photos in the Alamance News if that was going on. I just doubt that I think it's up to Rudy to prove or disprove. But again, I'm calling foul on some of these
Well,
claims. Butch McKenzie starts off his presentation with, now, I'm not going to talk about the environmental impacts of all of these, the lead in the watershed, right? Well, I've been on that property several times. I can't even remember a puddle being on that property. I don't think there's a watershed on that property. It's like, I think and of course he's not going to talk about that. So I guess we could just move on, right? Of course he's talking about it. What he's doing is he's going out of his way to create the perception of wrongdoing where there otherwise is no wrongdoing. And as you begin to peel off each of these issues and you say to yourself, that sounds like crap to me. This is not true. This one doesn't seem to be true. This one, like, what you really come down to is, I'm angry about being next to a loud gun range. And I think it seems pretty clear to me that what we're really dealing with is you got a neighbor who's not happy about being next to a loud gun range, period. And what I've done too is to try to sympathize with them. Is I've actually gone out to this property and listened to the gun sounds. I've driven around the block. I've gone over towards the church, and I say to myself, yeah, I wouldn't want to live next to. I mean, I live next to an airport that I can't stand,
yeah.
and
I've
it's
heard
only
it
getting
too.
busier.
Yeah.
And then all they have to do is reverse the plane direction that they're going, and I'm going to be like, great, I got to go buy, $40,000 worth of new windows to insulate my house from the sound outside. But it's a fact of life. If I start complaining to county commissioners that they just gave all this free money away to the LabCorp to make my otherwise quiet little small commuter airport now a commercial hub, I would I don't think I have grounds to sit there and just eat up years of the commissioner meetings.
Yeah, I think I think what and this is the thing, and I've said this to you before. The gun range came to where they were. You moved into where the airplanes are flying. Okay, but let me get to this. But Shawn, initially we could not. There's just no way that we could. I mean, I say no way. I mean, they had pictures of trees that had been shot down. I mean, initially. Okay, now this was.
I heard them refer to it. I'd like to see these trees mowed down. Because I've been out there. I have not seen mowed down trees anywhere. I would like to see those pictures.
So he handed a packet. He actually handed a packet. That's the A&D that he's referring to. So the trees being mowed down and actually building a berm. I don't know if there was an image of that he gave them, but he actually said there was a question about or discrepancy with the property line. And so they said he was actually building the berms on Howard Dunn's land. I don't know. I mean, have they had a recent survey to identify what's what, or do you know that? I mean, because those are big. Yeah, those are big.
If there's a property, let's take that one claim at a time. Did you see the packet that they handed out?
I did not. I saw them handed out.
And I can tell you that they're already the kind of people, just by the way they've presented so far, that they will make an implication that's absolutely false because they know the implication is more powerful than having to prove something. If they had to take this evidence to court of law, and by the way, I believe there are several court cases actively between these parties.
Hmm.
That's the forum where I think these things need to be adjudicated, because that's where facts matter.
Right.
What they're really trying to do is smear the range, smear Rudy personally, to get rid of him so that they can develop that property instead of Rudy. It's like, your business is in the way of my business, so I'm going to destroy your business so my business can succeed.
Yeah.
What? And the other thing too is, this was always a gun range.
Hmm.
Well, this was previously a gun range. Let me put it that way, because
Yeah.
there's some debate over whether it was a restaurant or a plantation, but I know when Rudy bought it, one of the reasons he wanted to buy it was because he knew it was grandfathered in as a gun range. It was an active gun range. And there's also a gun range a mile away from Rudy's place. It's a Carolina Gun Club, or I forget the exact name of it. But they presented too. And what I thought was ironic was they open at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. Now, isn't that interesting? What that tells me is, it's not the fact that I have a gun range in my neighborhood. It's not the fact that they're firing during church service. The real problem is you're successful, and that's even louder than the quiet gun range. We don't mind a quiet gun range that's not very successful and isn't producing that kind of sound, right? This one is actually chosen by the free market. There's a lot of people who enjoy that range because the facilities are excellent. The berms are extra high. They have the space. They've got the extra long range that other places don't have. They follow safety protocols. They know Rudy knows his gun business. He's got a store there. He's got equipment and ammunition and different kinds of guns. And I mean, people just, the free market is speaking and likes his product. So he's really being punished for his success. If he went back to the days of 1776 Club and only did the kind of business that they were doing and didn't have this kind of success, well, apparently the neighbors didn't have a problem with that. What they have a problem with is it's much more active now, and more people are shooting there than ever before. And there was another comment that I heard you say when you ended one of your podcasts. You actually said, well, I guess there's no other solution than, Rudy, you're just going to have to find somewhere else to run your business. You just start looking for property because that's really the only solution. I'm like, where do you suggest? So he already did that once.
I said not the, I doubt I said the only solution. I said a solution would be to look and to see, we'll have to check the video, but I think he said to look and see if there are other options, simply because, I would think the community, I wouldn't want to, how happy can he be? How happy can he be knowing that the community is just, to me, that would trouble me. I'm just saying that would trouble me.
Is it really the community that's against him, or is it the few neighbors that are being given a very large microphone in our county commissioner meetings?
Well, it could be that too.
And it's creating public perception that wouldn't exist otherwise.
Yeah.
I think the county commissioners need to come to a point where they're saying, look, you guys have a neighbor grievance with each other. You need to adjudicate that between yourselves in the court of law. That's the proper place to adjudicate this. Hiring us to create a law that targets you and puts you out of business, this is not the forum to do that. That's not the way law is supposed to work.
It wouldn't put him. I'm just saying, and I don't know that I don't know what I think about the county ordinance. I think maybe there needs to be evaluation. Look into that pretty good, especially if what one of them said that every county in the state, I believe Bill Lashley said that every county in the state had an ordinance for county zoning. So maybe that's something they need to look at too. But I'm like you. I think, and I'm like you. I've wondered why, if these allegations are being made and you've got evidence, that would be the first thing I would do, would be to try to take it to a court, because that would be a lot more effective and efficient to really try to, especially if projectiles are leaving the range. And obviously, and let me say this, because I was thinking about this, obviously they were leaving. And the reason I say that is because Rudy, wait a minute. Rudy said that he built the berms up. And this is and he rightly should. That's good. But the thing that I have is when they brought these accusations, the projectiles, I've never heard him one time saying projectiles were not leaving his range. And I think that's why he dug the deeper burn, or built the higher berms to where you're shooting downward. I think that was one of the reasons he did that. And that's good. I think that's what he should have did. There was one more thing.
And that's an example of a compromise.
Yeah.
Like, what we're being told is, oh, Rudy's not going to listen to a doggone thing. I mean, Sheriff Johnson, God love him, but he's standing between an angry mob
Yeah.
and a law-abiding citizen. What you think about the hardest part of a sheriff's job? You know you got the angry mob that chases the mobster out into the desert, catches him, and immediately wants to lynch him, right? And what's the job of the sheriff? The job of the sheriff is to ride in there, stop them, and say, "Wait a minute, we are not a democracy. I don't care how many left-wing lunatics and right-wing, you know, ignorant people keep saying we're a democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a republic. Where this is where the rule of law has to be the order of the day, and it's the sheriff's job to maintain that in the face of an angry mob, and that's what he's dealing with. So
Yeah.
he's got to actually. So he's saying things like, "Oh, that Rudy's not going to listen to a doggone thing."
I heard him say that. Yeah. What's he
Rudy's
mean?
paying tens of thousands of dollars to dig deeper berms. You know, he's compromising, and
Yeah.
you know, really what you see here is you've got these land developers saying you're getting out of here. That is the compromise. You're leaving, and we're going to make your life absolutely miserable. And we're thankful to the county commissioners that they're willing to give us the microphone that we need to destroy you.
And Shawn, I don't believe that's a part that's really been brought up. I've not heard Rudy mention that or any. I mean, as far as what the intentions of the of the community, or at least of the group. I don't know who all is involved in that, but that this is another element more that lets us understand a little bit more. I mean, you'd want to ask Butch, is this true? Is this what y'all are planning to do, or
Are you
whoever the
yeah,
leader?
these are the question I would ask. Are you actively attempting to build that area, develop your property into a suburban housing zone, right? Um, and of course, and there was another guy in there. I forget his name. He says, "Oh, I bought the land right across the street, the old Fawcett
Mhm,
horror."
mhm.
I
Yeah.
forget what he called it. And he basically is like, "Well, I already knew all these problems were happening. I only bought the property because I figured the county would do something about it." In other words, and he even referred to Butch as my good friend Butch, right?
Mhm.
And so what does he mean? I joined in the fight. No, I'm adding my muscle behind the fight to get rid of Rudy. And I'm making, and the area that he's investing in, by the way, is on the same block area as where Butch has all his acreage. So I think it's like 350 acres or so. It's a lot of acreage. Right across, basically, it's a cow field across the street from the range, and they want to develop that. And he basically, the way I see it, he's investing into that property, and now he's joining the fight to try to maximize the return on the investment that he made on a property that wouldn't be worth very much if this fight gets lost. So for him, it was probably a gamble because he's not living there. It's not like he bought his dream home and is fixing it up. And, the way I understand it, he doesn't live there.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I wasn't sure. But so what do you think? What do you think is the solution? I guess you're basically saying is the solution to this is it really needs to stop being discussed in the public forums, arenas where nothing's really going to be done and really handled by the courts. And do you see any compromise? I mean, I say compromise. I mean, do you see any of the working out of this relationship to really,
Now, I think these guys are locked in lawsuits. And until the courts adjudicate their lawsuits, you're going to have neighbors who wish they didn't live in a loud neighborhood with a gun range, and a gun range that has every right to exist and will continue operating until Rudy's not able to operate it anymore. And that's or you're going to have county commissioners that bend to the mob and continue to find us a law to make just to keep an angry mob happy.
okay.
And in
Yeah.
doing so, they're going to target a business, and that business will then have legal recourse to go back and sue the county because you made this law to target me, right? And then now he's got legal recourse, and guess who's going to pay the bill for the legal? Yeah, you and I are going to pay that bill, right?
Yeah.
Politicians get to make these great decisions to protect their own votes, right, and then they publicize the costs of all
Okay, let me ask you this question. You brought up the county commissioners. Now they voted 3-2 against it. John Paisley, Bill Lashley, and Pam Thompson voted against it. Steve Carter and Craig Thompson voted for it. Now the board has changed a little bit. You've got I think Kelly Allen has taken Craig's spot, and then you have Ed Priola who has taken Bill Lashley's spot. How do you see the makeup of the board changing this? You heard any conversation about really contemplating a countywide zoning? But even then, they said that it wouldn't affect that which was already
well,
grandfathered. Is that correct?
and that's what I think really gets me is as they enumerate all of these different ideas, they admit, well, it won't help the situation because he's grandfathered in on the sound stuff. A bouncing bullet amendment, if it had successfully passed, would have only fined the person doing the shooting. It's not a way of getting at Rudy, right?
Yeah,
If my bullet happens to bounce onto your property and hits a tree 50 feet up in the air on your 350 acres, which is literally a mile from the house you live in, and otherwise it's just some woods, what
yeah.
legal recourse do you have against me?
I
And
remember.
the legal recourse you have is against me personally as the shooter, as
Yeah,
the customer, not against the range. The range would be absolved, right? So there's not one of these things that they're talking about actually doing that would impact this situation, which tells me they're not there to really fix the situation. They're there to nail Rudy. They're there to harm, do physical harm, do emotional harm and business harm to the range because it's a personal vendetta. And personal vendettas, I don't think have any place hogging
yeah.
up our.
Now I agree with that. And let me say this. What about the community people who? And I know you said emotional harm. You're saying that this is not troubling them as much as they're letting on to be. Like the guy at the last meeting that they had. You had sent me something that said that Rudy said that they had not blown up that. What do you call that? It starts with a T. The
The Tannerite
dynamite. The
explosive.
okay.
It's
You
basically
you
like a
haven't
block
done.
of Play-Doh.
I
You
got you.
shoot it and blow
Yeah.
it up.
Said they hadn't
Yeah.
shot the tannerite hadn't shot it or something like that in 2 years. When in the last meeting, this Hicks guy, Mr. Hicks went before there and said that just as recently, I think this month or something like real close, they had heard
Yeah.
explosions that caused
Here's
that
the,
type of explosion. So what is he talking about?
so I asked Rudy, and what Rudy said was, "Yeah, I heard it too. I think it was either the Carolina Gun Club or it was one of the neighbors, because the neighbors, those the people who live there, they're shooters. But these people are hunters. They're shooters themselves, right? That I think what they're doing is they're jumping on the bandwagon with, I think Butch, then the other guy who wants to develop the property, and the rest of them are all like, it's not that bad, but he's my neighbor. And yeah, I would like to see some of it end too. I I don't the Tannerite Rudy, as he explained it to me, sold Tannerite when he was in Graham, and I used to visit that shop fairly often. And I remember that, and I think I'm like, I'm not blowing that. It's just, to me, it's just a waste of money.
Yeah.
But he stopped selling that 2 years ago when they closed the Graham store and moved back to the gun range. They stopped selling it, and he still has a block of it, I guess, for like they call it a gender reveal party. If it's
Oh
a girl,
yeah,
you
yeah,
blow
yeah,
up the pink one, and if it's a boy, you blow up the blue one.
yeah.
He's got one block of that sitting in his shop. It hasn't sold in 2 years. But the ones that he has sold were not exploded on his property. And as a policy, he doesn't do Tannerite anymore.
Okay.